fair to say that never in the history of the Federal Reserve has it had a more severe or more consistent critic than our next guest, former Congressman Ron Paul, who's here now to discuss today's Fed decision. Dr. Paul, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you. Nice
Great
to be
see
here.
you. First of all, what do you think about what happened today? Everybody was expecting some kind of pullback on the money printing, but not even that.
No, it wasn't, but I think that's a very bad sign. That must mean the Fed is really worried. You know, everybody thought, well, they could now.
Worried about what?
About the economy, because they're always bragging that the economy is doing well, the employment is up, and the deceit, I believe, deception that they put out there, everything is doing pretty good. So now he says, no, it isn't going good, so we're going to keep inflating. It's 85, we have to do it. So I think it's a really bad sign, but the markets liked it, all of a sudden.
The markets are doing well, there's no doubt, but the average American clearly, as we pointed out, average income is flat, which when you add in even the little bit of inflation that the Fed is willing to admit to, and frankly I think it's more than that because they don't count food and gas, even then the average American loses value as a result of their income being stagnant.
Yeah, and even if he gets his 2%, if you think of it in a moral sense, what right does he have to take away 2% of our purchasing power deliberately? What right does he have to punish the elderly who save money? The old days there, frugality was a good idea. And I asked both Bernanke and Greenspan this question, and they sort of just throw their hands up and say, well, some people won't benefit by this. They recognize that was the case, but that's wrong.
So what happens?
Why punish savers?
So what happens now? It is clear that if it's Janet Yellen, if she succeeds Ben Bernanke, she's going to be like Bernanke on steroids. If today is any indication, what does that mean for our economy?
Just prepare for the destruction of the dollar and a crash in the bond market one day. I think the bond bubble is weakening. The interest rates have doubled on the 10-year bond in the last year. What if that?
Oh, they came down tremendously today. 16 basis points in one day.
But you wait and see. The trend will be up, and it's going to be zigzagging up. But I think it's definitely up. I think the interest rates will go up, and the dollar is going to weaken. The prices, they'll have to admit the prices are going up, and the standard of living is going down. And the worst political problem we have is the discrepancy between the poor and the middle class and the wealthy.
I feel in a weird position where I have to defend the Fed for a second here. The housing market has benefited from these low interest rates. There's no question about that, right?
Well, yes, some places, but I don't know whether it's all good investment because they get their signal from the Fed. They didn't get the signal from savings. So you still could have people doing things that they shouldn't do. I hear advertisements on the TV that we'll renew your mortgages and you don't have to have anything down, and all this stuff is
harkening back to the financial crisis.
But I don't. Some of it will be good investment, but I think as long as the interest rates are artificial, I think you're going to get malinvestment, misdirected investment, and people are going to make mistakes, and you don't know what they are until the correction has to come.
Is there anything Congress or even the president could do? I mean, the president clearly seems to be veering towards Janet Yellen, particularly since Larry Summers pulled out over the weekend, so perhaps no help there. What about Congress?
To help
anybody following in your footsteps and trying to hold the Fed's feet to the fire?
Well, there's a couple in the House, and I imagine my son will talk about the Fed now and then. So there'll be a few there, but I think it's going to grow in numbers. But the most important thing is what happened to me last night. I was at a book signing event, and a young kid came up to me and wanted to talk about the Fed. I said, how old are you? He says, 14. And they're reading about the Fed, and there's a whole generation that never talked about the Fed until 4 or 5 years ago. It's a big issue. Money is a big issue. It's 1/2 of every single transaction, and we don't even know how to define a dollar.
Could it become an issue in the next presidential election, perhaps even whether we should have a Fed?
I think it will continue to be a subject because people now know, in a growing number, it's growing by leaps and bounds, recognize that the Fed doesn't give us nirvana. It doesn't give us perfect, economies, and they can't do much now to get us out of them.
Well, you're young and spry. You may not be running again, but are you going to lead the charge?
Well, probably not. Maybe philosophically I'll be involved and try to influence young people who are energized, and they energize me because the campuses are alive and well, and they want to talk about free markets. They want to talk about liberty across the board, how it affects foreign policy and NSA. They're very interested in how our privacy is being intruded upon. And I think there's a lot to be optimistic about on the long run, but on the short run, I think we are going to have to go through some tough times.
Think what you may of Dr. Ron Paul, but he is as absolutely consistent and sincere as anybody I've ever met inside the Beltway. Dr. Paul, great to see you. Thank you very much for being here.
Good
Liz?